Welcome to 5 Minute Bible, your daily guide for your daily reading. Today's June the 30th, and we'll be looking at 2 Chronicles 19 through 23. Now yesterday, Ahab died exactly as the Lord had spoken, and Jehoshaphat barely escaped the consequences of his alliance with him. Today, 2 Chronicles 19 through 23 shows both the mercy that God extends to Jehoshaphat, but also the generational damage that his compromise causes. Jehoshaphat receives correction, reforms justice, and seeks the Lord when a massive army invades Judah. And yet his family remains entangled with Ahab's house. His son Jehoram murders his brothers. His grandson Ahaziah follows the wicked counsel of Ahab's family. Then Athaliah seizes the throne and attempts to destroy the royal line of David. The covenant promise appears to hang by a single thread, and one hidden child preserves the house. Now Jehoshaphat returns from battle and is rebuked by the prophet Jehu for helping Ahab. But unlike Ahab, Jehoshaphat receives the correction. He appoints judges throughout Judah and commands them to judge in the fear of the Lord, remembering that they do not judge for man, but for God. Then a massive coalition from Moab, Ammon, and Mount Seir invades Judah. Jehoshaphat gathers the nation at the temple and confesses Judah's helplessness and prays, "We don't know what to do, but our eyes are on you, God." The Lord answers through a prophet declaring that the battle belongs to him. And then Judah advances with singers praising the Lord, and God causes the enemy armies to destroy one another. It reminds you a lot of the time of Gideon. Now, Jehoshaphat later enters another foolish partnership with the wicked Ahaziah, and God destroys their ships. The king has received mercy and correction, but his tendency towards compromising with alliances still remains. That compromise has already entered his household because his son Jehoram marries Athaliah and then murders his brothers and walks in all of the ways of Ahab's house. Judgment falls on him through invasion, revolt, disease, and disgrace, and Jehoram's son Ahaziah continues in the same corruption and is killed during Jehu's judgment upon Ahab's dynasty. Athaliah then seizes power and continues to destroy all of the royal offspring. But Jehoshaphat rescues the infant Joash and hides him in the temple for 6 years. At the appointed time, Jehoiada the priest gathers the leaders, reveals the young king, and then crowns him king of Israel at the ripe old age of 6. Athaliah is executed, Baal's temple is torn down, covenant worship is restored, and the throne of David is preserved. Now, as you read today, I want you to ask the following question. Can the promise of God survive when compromise spreads throughout a nation, when rulers become wicked and human faithfulness appears to be extinguished? And these chapters answer with a resounding yes. God's covenant rests finally upon his own faithfulness and not upon the strength, wisdom, or consistency of man. And in that way, the central pattern in these chapters is the long reach of compromise and the even stronger reach of divine providence. Jehoshaphat is a faithful king in many respects. He receives rebuke and reforms Judah's courts, and he seeks God in the crisis, leads the nation in prayer and worship. When an overwhelming army approaches, he doesn't rely upon military strength, but he confesses Judah's helplessness and fixes his eyes upon the Lord. And God answers by fighting for his people. Judah enters the battlefield singing, and then God grants victory before they even lift a sword. And yet, Jehoshaphat's alliances with Ahab's house aren't harmless. What begins as political cooperation becomes a marriage bond, then moral corruption, fratricide, Baal worship, and the almost entire destruction of David's line. Compromise often outlives the moments in which it was made. A decision that appears practical in one generation can become bondage in the next. Our loyalties shape our households. Our friendships influence our judgment. The sins that we tolerate may become the inheritance our children will have to fight. But the reach of God's providence is always stronger. When Athaliah rules from the palace, God preserves Joash in the temple. While wickedness appears to control the kingdom, the covenant promise is quietly protected behind closed doors. Faithfulness may sometimes appear small and hidden and vulnerable, but hidden is not abandoned. The royal line is reduced to one child, and yet one child is enough when God has spoken. And in that way, these chapters point powerfully to Jesus Christ as the preserved and promised Son of David. Jehoshaphat confesses that Judah is powerless and does not even know what to do, but Christ is the greater king who fights for the helpless people and wins the battle that could never be won by themselves. His people stand firm and they receive a salvation that is accomplished by the Lord. The preservation of Joash also carries the covenant story forward. Again, the royal seed appears threatened with extinction, and yet God will not allow his promise to David to fail. Joash is hidden, protected, and revealed at the appointed time as the rightful king. And that pattern anticipates Christ fully because Herod will later attempt to destroy the royal child, but God will preserve him. Jesus appears weak and vulnerable, and yet he's the promised king whose throne cannot be overthrown. Jehoiada serves as priest, the covenant guardian, and kingmaker, but Christ is still greater. He is both priest and king. And he doesn't merely preserve David's line, he fulfills the Davidic promise of a king who reigns forever. Athaliah destroys life in order to preserve her throne, and yet Christ gives life to receive his kingdom and save his people. She reigns temporarily through violence and deception, and yet Christ reigns eternally through righteousness and resurrection. Joash remains hidden until the appointed time and is then revealed with public acclamation. Well, in a far greater way, Christ emerges from the concealment of the grave and is declared to be the Son of God in power. The nations may rage and the earthly rulers may conspire, but God's anointed still takes his throne. So as you read 2 Chronicles 19 through 23 today, notice both the devastating reach of compromise and the unconquerable faithfulness of God. And tomorrow, the lens will widen beyond Judah as Obadiah in Psalm 82 through 83 declares the Lord judges not only the kings within Israel, but also every proud nation and corrupt ruler and hostile coalition on earth. And with that, read your Bible carefully, devotionally, and joyfully. May the Lord use his word to sanctify you completely, and we will continue our journey tomorrow. God bless you.